Hey, how are you doing today? I'm Bernie Bro, and as I said in the previous video, I'm back from going without internet access for the last few days, other than using the phone. But as I said, I'm back, and I'm here to do commentary. And I was going to do a commentary, which I'm actually addressing right now, on Bernie Sanders and his non-attendance just taking place recently over a provision in the Patriot Act that's supposed to that actually now allows the government to tap into your web browsing history. But first, let me just take this all back because this is going almost back 2 decades, as hard as it is to believe. After 9/11, one of the first legislation that really turned our nation into a surveillance state where civil liberties just seems to be perpetually clamped down on was the passage of the Patriot Act. It wasn't that the United States was this great civil libertarian society over the years. I mean, especially going back to the days when Reagan and Bush one stacked the damn courts to make it as right wing as it was in the 1990s. But you add insult to injury, or you grind salt on a gashing wound, because George W. Bush and the Republican House and Republican Senate and many cowardly Democrats went along and voted in the Patriot Act. A handful of left wing Democrats voted against it. A handful of libertarian leaning Republicans voted against it. And for those lefty Democrats and libertarian leaning Republicans, no problem with y'all. Y'all did the right thing to vote against it. And anybody who voted for this piece of shit legislation is scum in my eyes. Look, there is a section, 215, that was voted in just about short of a week ago. And it was something that Mitch McConnell wanted to put back into the Patriot Act because it was the part of the Patriot Act that was expired. And that was to allow the U.S. government to tap in to people's web browsing history. Most of the Republicans voted in favor of it, and enough Democrats did too. Again, you have a situation where it was kind of a mix. Some Republicans were kind of like internet privacy, too much government overreach. Hell no. And I would imagine some of them, one of them being Rand Paul, who's terrible on economics. But the beautiful thing about libertarianism is that while they're terrible on economics, from my perspective, they can be good on other issues regarding overreach by the government. Um, I would imagine that would be the case. And I know that I heard Ron Wyden of Oregon passionately talking about this overreach. Now, there are some people that I want to talk about three key people that voted, uh, two key people that voted the correct way for sure, and a little bit mad at her, but she's kind of redeemed herself with this vote, and that was Elizabeth Warren. She wanted to protect internet privacy rights, and the other person is a Republican. I like to call Jesse Helms of today without the racism, and that's Ted Cruz of Texas. And so Elizabeth Warren has kind of redeemed herself a little bit with this vote, and for Ted Cruz, good for you. You don't get a compliment from me too often, but this is one of the few times you'll get a compliment. And Ted, if you're listening, I disagree with you on everything, but the beard is actually an improvement. It looks cool. Everything you stand for politically sucks, but the beard looks good. Now, I want to talk about Bernie Sanders for a moment. Now, I have a lot of people that are in the left wing kind of divided on Bernie Sanders in this key vote that he missed out on. Now, I know there's been a little bit of criticism against Bernie Sanders lately by many of my fellow lefties um, that were longtime supporters of Bernie Sanders, and I do have a few complaints too myself lately. I'm not happy that Bernie Sanders missed out on this vote, but I do not think that it was a conspiracy or he was bribed or they threatened his life, the military industrial complex. I am not going to go into that kind of conspiracy hubbub. I think that what's happened is a combination of two things. One, with Bernie Sanders suspending his campaign, he was so busy focusing too much on this national unity task force to, to come up with recommendations for Joe Biden. Recommendations that he will obviously just say and ignore. I call it a dog and pony show if there ever was one. Especially since he's promised to fill his administration with Republicans. And all this talk about him becoming the next FDR. I mean, come on, people. I mean, I don't blame y'all for choosing Biden as a lesser evil to Trump, but come on now. FDR? Really? No, Bernie Sanders was so busy trying to make nice with Joe Biden and so obsessed with not becoming the next Ralph Nader in the eyes of the American people. That and also because of the COVID and COVID, which kept some people away. I think it was a combination of those factors that happened, and Bernie Sanders got kind of distracted, and he wasn't able to make it for that vote. Because, folks, people, you have to understand that when it comes to votes, key votes in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, there are times there are people not available for voting for whatever reason. And so they're not there for every single vote there is. And what sucks about it is sometimes are very important issues. As I said, I do not think that Bernie Sanders is for spying on the internet, and I don't think he was threatened. I don't think he was bribed or anything. Because and yeah, I am defending Bernie Sanders because I understand Bernie Sanders' deal. Bernie Sanders is not going to deliberately allow a piece of legislation like government going into your internet, checking your web browsing history without a warrant. Bernie Sanders is a civil libertarian. Bernie Sanders is a big free speech absolutist. He's a right to privacy absolutist. Bernie Sanders is a hardcore civil libertarian or left libertarian, and there is such a term, and it applies to Bernie Sanders. A left libertarian, I'm one myself. That's what Bernie's deal is. Bernie Sanders is not going to sit there and knowingly allow such a piece of legislation like that to go by, and I'm sure he's probably remorseful about it, not necessarily for his political legacy, but because he is a principled politician. Now, as I said, being a principled politician, he's still a human being at the end of the day. And even people who are rock stars in other people's eyes, and I admit Bernie Sanders is a big hero of mine. Um, they're going to fail you occasionally, and it's not just on the left. I mean, I know people out there that make they'll make excuses even for the Republicans, partisan Republicans, and you'll sit there and tell them where there is an inconsistency in their voting record or their core convictions, and they will write it off, whatever. Um, and it exists on the left, but no, not me. I admit I am a big Bernie Sanders fan, but I can tell you various bills that he has supported that I absolutely disagree with, and you also have to understand when bills are submitted in Congress on Capitol Hill, they have amendments added to it. So sometimes they're on the surface a very good bill with some shitty amendments and vice versa. So you always end up having people voting for bad pieces of legislation because they had some good parts in it, and vice versa. I mean, and and then there are times where you have politicians, members of the U.S. House of Representatives, members of the U.S. Senate, that will not be available for key legislation, which is important to vote for. I don't know what can be done to change that, but I would like to see that. I would like to see that change if possible, because I would think that if you're an elected member of the House or elected member of the Senate, regardless of what political party you belong to, whatever, I think that everybody should be available to vote and at least have the at least be on record, yay, nay, or present. Anyway, that is my take on this. And if you like what you heard, you can give me a thumbs up. And if you hate what you heard and it just makes you nauseous and you think it sucks, just vote no, or smash that button there, the thumbs down, and feel free to subscribe, and tell everybody else about this channel. And once again, I'm Bernie Bro. Peace.